Big event now underway here. T minus 19 minutes, 41 seconds and counting. As the big event gets underway here, also want to thank Renee Authentic Raw for a $5 super chat. Appreciate that support. Says, beautiful morning in Orlando, sitting here in my backyard with perfect view to launch on the coast. It's always exciting. Thanks for the coverage. And then Renee became a channel member, so we appreciate that additional support. Also want to thank Mark Otto, one of our pre-existing channel members, for gifting 10 Spaceflight Now channel memberships, helping to continue growing our community here on YouTube. It's very much appreciated, Mark. To our 10 newest channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank Mark in the live chat if you haven't already. We're now T minus 16 minutes, 44 seconds and counting. And then now just about 30 seconds. We're now T minus 15 minutes, 56 seconds and counting. Big vent has concluded. Second stage LOX load has begun. And as we continue to roll on in, I want to thank the 3,300 of you that are watching live. Really appreciate you being up with us this morning. Whether you're getting your own workday up and running or getting kids ready to send off to school. I know it's a bit chaotic in the morning for a lot of folks, so appreciate you either being able to attentively watch our live launch coverage or maybe throw it on in the background as you're getting your day started. However, you're consuming the broadcast. Certainly appreciate you being a part of our morning. We're glad to be a part of yours. As noted in our video description, and as some have noted in the live chat as well, Falcon 9 rocket is flying a northeasterly trajectory today. So while we still have some time and we're getting some more folks in with us, let's go ahead and talk about that trajectory and show you what that exactly means. Falcon 9 rocket set to lift off from Pad 40 here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Space Launch Complex 40, otherwise known as Slick 40. Again, flying in that northeasterly trajectory, heading up the coast of Florida, as well as Georgia and the Carolinas. Try to keep an eye out for that SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket as it makes its way up the coastline. If you are able to capture some photos or video of the Falcon 9's climb uphill, be sure to tag us on social media. Again, we are at Spaceflight Now on X, formerly Twitter, Threads, as well as Facebook. Channel member Jane Jones noting that, of course, a lot of kids are out of school for the summer. Though I vividly remember going to summer school when I was in my younger years. So I imagine there are still a number of parents that are getting their kids ready for summer school as well as maybe some other summer activities today. So while maybe the vast majority of kids here in the US are not in school right now, I imagine there are some out there who are in fact getting ready to hit the books. A little bit after liftoff, of course, the first stage booster will separate from the upper stage, make its way down to the drone ship. Today, the one that's on tap is just read the instructions. The payload fairings will be jettisoned just a little bit downrange of the map you see here on your screen. SpaceX has two East Coast recovery vessels to scoop up those fairing halves. The one on deck today is Bob. The other vessel, Doug, named after former NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. Of course, the duo that flew the Demo 2 mission for SpaceX back on May 30th of 2020. SpaceX saves about $6 million per recovery effort, so it's an important part of their business model to try and recover these first stage boosters, or these payload fairings, which float down to the waters of the Atlantic Ocean under parachutes. This is what it looks like when they're bringing those payload fairings on board one of the recovery vessels. Now, T minus 11 minutes, 31 seconds and counting. Stars 113, one of our wonderful channel members, making a $5 Australian super chat. Really appreciate that, Stars. Asking, do you know if there will be any launches from Australia anytime soon, or how to check if there will be? Well, there is a company called Gilmore Space that has been working towards a launch from Australia. However, I don't believe they have received their launch license for their Eris rocket. The rocket's about 25 meters or 82 feet tall, about 1.5 meters or about 4.9 feet in diameter. They had teased a hopeful launch around the May timeframe, but then punted that back and they didn't have their launch license in hand. So TBD exactly when they will fly, but I would say two things to the latter part of your question as far as when to know when that will be. You can always check on our launch schedule on our website, spaceflynow.com, where we endeavor to keep that as up to date and present as possible. And so once they are ready to launch, they have their license in hand, we'll update that entry, let you know when they're ready to launch. You can also check their social media. They're on X or Twitter. I'm not sure if they have a presence on Facebook or some of the other sites as well, but good question. Of course, Rocket Lab also very active in the Southern Hemisphere. They just achieved their 50th launch with their Electron rocket. Last little bit here. If you haven't already, we actually have a video up on our YouTube channel right now where we were able to talk one-on-one with Peter Beck about the progress on the Electron rocket. He's a little bit ahead to Neutron. So the video's up on the channel. You can check that out after our live launch coverage wraps up, or really anytime. We're T-minus 9 minutes, 5 seconds and counting away from this Falcon 9 launch today. Just a couple minutes away from the chill down of the 9 Merlin 1D engines. Taking a quick look at the coverage map for SpaceX. This is animation that they published not too long ago of their expansion out to now 100 countries, territories, or other markets where Starlink internet is currently available. Those light blue areas that you see popping in are where coverage is currently available. The darker blue shaded areas are combination of waitlisted and coming soon, and the dark gray are where Starlink service is not available, and there are no current plans for it to be. Again, 23 Starlink satellites on board this Falcon 9 rocket today. This will be the 47th Starlink launch this year. Each of them clocking in at about 1,760 pounds or 800 kilograms. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet, 30 meters. They use Argon Hall thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering, built in Redmond, Washington. And these will be deployed at 174 miles or 279 kilometers altitude at a 53.6-degree inclination. We're now T-minus 6 minutes, 18 seconds and counting. About a minute into the process where they chill down those 9 Merlin 1D engines on the Falcon 9 first stage booster. As we continue to step on through the count, coming to these final minutes, let's go ahead and talk about the Falcon 9 rocket itself, the workhorse vehicle for SpaceX, standing at about 70 meters or 229 feet tall. It has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Most of that, of course, made up by that first stage. Bottom two-thirds of the rocket. As we've discussed, this particular booster has flown 21 times before, going for a record 22nd flight. Tail number 1062 in the SpaceX fleet. At the base are the 9 Merlin 1D engines burning a combination of rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are the black carbon fiber landing legs used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Today, of course, they're using just read the instructions. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 rocket as it comes back through the atmosphere tail first, like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. At first stage main engine cutoff, high pressure helium is used to release those latches. and four pneumatic pushers ensure clean separation. Second stage engine nozzle is housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle, which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 200,000 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight, placing the 23 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same propellant mix as the first stage. Following stage separation, we'll ignite for a third time for a deorbit burn. Let's actually go ahead and take a look here at the final part of the Falcon 9 rocket, those payload fairings, as we're seeing the strong back retract sequence now in play. Those clamp arms underneath the payload fairing opening up. They'll recline the transport erector, that is, about 1.5 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Fairings are about 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall, 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. Again, they'll be recovered on the recovery vessel Bob, brought back to Port Canaveral, then to Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, where they will be refurbished and turned around for future flights. SpaceX is working to certify its fairing halves and its first stage boosters for up to 40 flights apiece. And as we are now less than 3 minutes, box load on the first stage is wrapping up.
Stage 1, LOX load complete.
There you hear that call out for the conclusion of stage 1 liquid oxygen load. The same process will conclude on the Falcon 9's upper stage in about 20 seconds. Just as a bit of housekeeping, you'll note that our countdown clock is slightly different from what you see on the SpaceX feed. You can bring that back. Reason for that is our clock is in real time and the feed coming in from SpaceX coming in on a slight delay. So we'll be making our majority of our call outs based off real time. Now less than 2 minutes out. Second stage LOX load is complete. We should hear that call out from SpaceX momentarily.
Stage 2, LOX load complete.
There you hear that call from SpaceX.
Gas launch closeout has started.
You hear the call for ground gas closeouts as we're now about a minute away from liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. "50 seconds.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
The next call we'll hear is the SpaceX launch director giving their go for launch.
Go for launch.
And with that confirmation, SpaceX in a good position to send this Falcon 9 rocket flying in 25 seconds. Set to be the 350th launch of a Falcon 9 rocket to date. 15 seconds. And here we go. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 10-3 mission. The Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. flight so far, the Falcon 9 rocket, as Falcon 9 now traveling faster than the speed of sound.
Max Q.
Falcon 9 passing through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Now about a minute 30 into flight. Some great tracking from our Adam Bernstein here at the press site. This view from our friend Pete Carstens with Max Q Productions.
And back engine chill has started.
SpaceX now thermally conditioning the Merlin vacuum engine for its ignition. We're coming up on 3 events in fairly rapid succession here. At T plus 2 minutes 26 seconds will be a first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO. That'll be followed 4 seconds later by stage separation. Then the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine at T plus 2 minutes 37 seconds. Then the payload fairings will be deployed at about 2 minutes 57 seconds into flight. There's MECO. Stage separation. And SES-1.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC startup.
And all good callouts from SpaceX, seeing those events from the onboard cameras as well now on the right-hand side of your screen. Those hypersonic grid fins deploying on the Falcon 9 first stage booster will help guide 1062 back down toward the drone ship. Just read the instructions.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there go the payload fairings from the onboard camera view. You can see them drifting away just to the left of the Merlin vacuum engine. It's good tracking views here from Pete. As you're seeing at the top of the screen, just going out of frame, that was the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket. Those little pulses you're seeing there in the big box, those are the cold gas thrusters on board the Falcon 9 first stage. It's what you're seeing in the upper right-hand corner box here in this triple box setup. Those pulses help to adjust the attitude of the vehicle. Essentially, its orientation, its positioning as it makes its way down towards the drone ship. First stage booster appears to have reached its apogee at 115 kilometers. Now a little more than 4.5 minutes into flight. The next milestone we're looking for here will come up at T plus 6 minutes and 5 seconds for the first stage entry burn, which will last about 22 seconds in total. We will keep an eye out from our vantage point here on the ground. Our cameras are scanning the sky in an attempt to try to see that entry burn beginning. Depending on where exactly it hits in the sky, though, and the amount of cloud cover, We may or may not be able to track it from the ground, but we will attempt to bring that to you. Entry burn now underway.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
And it looks like a combination of just the lighting conditions, the amount of cloud, where the sun is. Just, we're not able to catch it from the ground, but we can see it here in the onboard cameras.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
With the conclusion of that entry burn, of course, you can see from the speedometer on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, Falcon 9 first stage now slowing down dramatically, assisted by atmospheric drag as well. Getting ready to start that first stage landing burn coming up now less than a minute at T plus 7 minutes and 50 seconds.
Stage 1 transonic.
That entry burn, or that landing burn, excuse me, will be starting in real time right about now. For SpaceX feed coming in about on a 10-second delay, so we're now less than 5 seconds from seeing the start of that entry burn.
Stage 1 landing burn. Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And for a 20-second time, a record 20-second time, the first stage booster 1062 safely down on the drone ship.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Stage 2 engine shutdown.
With that final call from SpaceX for SECO 1, second stage engine cutoff, the Falcon 9 upper stage enters into a parking orbit where it will coast until about T plus 53 minutes and 41 seconds, at which point they will have a brief 2-second burn, setting up for the Starlink satellites to deploy at T plus 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 35 seconds. And with that, want to close things out as we always do with a look at our mission stats, and then we'll come back and top things off by reading a few more super chats and acknowledging some new channel members here. But let's begin with the mission stats they currently stand now that we've got a good liftoff and landing of Falcon 9 first stage booster 1062, which of course marked a record-breaking 22nd flight liftoff and landing. This was SpaceX's 350th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 65th Falcon 9 flight of 2024. This is SpaceX's 293rd Falcon booster reflight, with the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was SpaceX's 66th launch of 2024. Now the Falcon 9 and overall orbital launch numbers no longer in sync, naturally because they launched successfully their 10th Falcon Heavy rocket earlier this week on Tuesday. This was SpaceX's 119th orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 194th orbital launch for SpaceX from Pad 40, and the 249th overall orbital launch from this pad. With this launch, here's where the bar chart stands. SpaceX continues to climb up towards its goal of hitting at least 144 launches this year, aiming for even more if it can accomplish that. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 85th landing of a booster on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. The 254th SpaceX drone ship landing to date, and the 325th overall SpaceX booster landing. And this was also the third booster landing for SpaceX this week. Of course, the Falcon Heavy rocket, they recovered both of the side boosters at landing zone 1 and 2 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Finally, with some industry stats for the year, this was the 48th orbital launch from Florida, the 70th orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 77th orbital launch from U.S. Rocket Company, the 124th orbital launch from around the globe. With a trio of launch mishaps, here's where the pie chart currently stands. U.S. continues to lead with 76 launches on the year, 62% of the pie. China still holding on to a quarter of that pie with 31 launches. Russia with 8 missions so far. Japan with 3. Iran and India with 2 apiece. And North Korea with just 1, which of course ended in one of those 3 launch failures.